Okay, let's get going. Hi everyone, and welcome to week 3 of our Look Forward series. Once again, we're here to talk about scale and how to navigate challenges at every stage of the customer journey as your e-commerce business grows. Scale and growth is a really exciting thing, but it can impact every part of the shopper's journey differently. Today we're talking fulfillment, and arguably this is one of the most important things to keep running smoothly as you grow, because it's the part the customer will remember. Their experience when they hit your site is important. Their payment experience as they convert is important. But what they'll really remember and potentially complain about is how long their order took to get to them and what it looked like when it arrived. Just ask my friends who over a month later are still hearing about my recent frying pan order, which turned up as a beautiful egg-shaped pan instead of a round one. As your store scales, you'll have more and more orders to fulfill. That's great news. But it also means more and more customers who could potentially have a negative experience if any part of your process does not scale with you. Luckily, I'm joined today by 3 absolute experts who know everything there is to know about fulfillment. I'm really excited to introduce today's speakers. We're joined by Carly, who is a channel account manager at ShipBob, Chad, co-founder of Skubana, and David, co-founder and head of product at Re. Amaze. So over to you 3 to introduce yourselves. Let's start with you, David.
Hi everyone, my name is David. As Fiona said, I'm the co-founder of Amaze, and I kind of head our product team as well as customer success team. And I've basically been kind of working on Amaze for the past 10 years, growing the team and kind of growing the business. Right now, I think we are focused on e-commerce. We have a lot of e-commerce merchants on our platform, and our entire goal is to help merchants succeed with customer service and offer their customers a better experience overall post-support and post-purchase and pre-purchase.
Fantastic. And Carly, how about you next?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm our channel account manager at ShipBob. I maintain our integrations and tech channel partners, and ShipBob is a 3PL that specializes in e-commerce.
Fantastic, thank you. And Chad, over to you.
Sure, yeah, I've been in e-commerce for the past decade. I actually started a home appliance parts company called Think Crucial. It still exists today, it's all automated. We built Skubana around a lot of my pain at scaling that business. We're a multi-channel e-commerce business. And so we launched Skubana about 5 years ago, pretty much all around automation and running your business, everything after checkout, sort of like the yin to Shopify's yang. That's how I view ourselves. And what else? I co-founded the Prosper Show, which was an Amazon sellers conference, which was recently acquired, along with writing an awesome book. Of course, it's on Amazon, called Cheaper, Easier, Direct.
Fantastic, thank you. I love it when you hear people's tools are set up based on their own pain points. I think that's so interesting because you must know the space inside out.
Yeah, but lost a lot of hair in the process, as you can see.
Great, thank you all. So just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. I've got some great questions lined up for our speakers today, but we'll also be taking any requests from the audience. So please do drop your questions into the chat box at any time. If we don't have time to get to the questions today, then we'll do our best to get back to you after the webinar as well. So now I'll just get rid of this presentation so you can see our speakers more clearly. And then we can get started with our questions. 1 second. Perfect. So question number 1. We see a lot of examples of e-commerce businesses that are going really above and beyond when it comes to connecting their online and offline customer journeys. Could you talk me through perhaps your favorite example of an e-commerce business that's doing that well? Chad, perhaps we can start with you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess one that really comes to mind that's recent would be Tushy. Hello Tushy is a customer of ours at Skubana. And so they sell bidets. So it's pretty much the only civilized way. And so with the pandemic happening, with the run of toilet paper in the United States, they skyrocketed in sales. And so one of the things that they were able to do is, number one, they created pop-up shops called poop-up shops. And for a big retailer, they wouldn't be able to actually move as quickly because they're not as agile as Hello Tushy is. And so I would say that's one of the ways that they were able to connect. They looked at everywhere around the United States that they were selling and connected the dots, triangulated where they should be opening up these pop-up shops. The second thing that they did, which was also very nimble, is they actually started fulfilling out of Hong Kong direct to consumer. So I would say like that's a great example of someone who I think is able to move super quick, rapid, and they're very nimble and agile to be able to capture what happened with the pandemic here in the United States.
Fantastic. That's a great example. Carly, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, it's a client of ours. It's called Megababe. They do natural deodorant. And so they were a Shopify brand first, e-commerce first. They really built that out and scaled it. And then what they did was they looked and they saw like, hey, we have a ton of orders coming from the West Coast. And they actually put their products in Targets near the West Coast. And then they were able to, in theory, drive promotions to Target and then have their online channel as well.
Fantastic. And David, how about you?
I probably have the most stories to tell because we mainly work in customer service. But we work with a lot of amazing businesses like Fox Racing, like Cabrita, like Collie Power. But I think one of them really kind of comes to mind is X-Way Skateboards. They actually use Re-Amaze kind of on the back end for a lot of their customer service tools. And this is a company that sells electric skateboards. They're not, cheap products. So they have a lot of fulfillment issues. They're based in China. But they do have like a US warehouse, and a lot of times what happens is they have their customers that are ordering skateboards and maybe putting some customized options on, and they have a lot of fulfillment issues, mainly because their operations has to go through, certain bills, and that can impact customer experience a lot. So what they've implemented is kind of a series of chatbots and a series of kind of FAQ articles that kind of tie in with those chatbots. And what they're doing for their customers is essentially kind of offering a customized support experience based on the questions that are being asked, based on kind of the timeline, based on where the order is at the moment, and offering their customers kind of a very informed customer journey in terms of post-purchase and pre-purchase. They're also integrating their entire support experience with Shopify, their 3PL provider, mainly because they have segregated warehouses, right? And sometimes when fulfillment can't keep up in the US warehouse, what they have to do is ship directly from China. And that can take, with the whole COVID situation, that can take up to a month or even more depending on kind of your geographical location. So I think automation for them has been a great improvement in terms of offering the customers a great experience when it comes to fulfillment and keeping their customers informed. I think overall, they've been able to reduce a lot of customer anxiety, but also keeping a lot of their customers happy throughout this entire process. I think without automation, without the ability to scale, and having their logistics be flexible enough to handle low volume times and also super high volume times, I think it's been great for their business and just overall decreasing and minimizing customer complaints.
I think that's such an interesting example as well, because obviously it's an industry that's growing and growing. I'm seeing more and more electric skateboards every day. So it's something that's kind of come out of nowhere, but a lot of people will have to scale quite quickly if that's the product that you're selling. Fantastic, thank you. So when we talk about fulfillment, there's obviously a very Amazon-shaped elephant in the room much of the time. They've effectively torn up the playing field in terms of delivery and shipping and things like that. So how would you recommend a scaling store competes with things like one day or free shipping if that's just not an option? Carly, can we start with you?
Yeah, so I think if it's not an option, like having just great customer service, I think that's super important. Having, just a good high quality product as well. And then you're always able to distribute your inventory, right? So if you can't offer things like same day or free shipping, knowing where your clients are and having inventory as close as possible to them, then you're able to offer things like 2-day shipping, 3-day shipping, which ultimately is going to make the customer a lot happier when they're getting that order in a really quick turnaround time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. David, customer service is probably quite up your alley as well.
Yeah, so I think as a business, the first thing you don't want to do is lie, right? The second thing you don't want to do is basically don't communicate. You definitely want to keep your customers informed. I think people underestimate how understanding and how forgiving end users are and customers are. I think as long as as a business, whether you're just starting out or you run a small medium-sized business or you run an enterprise business, I think it's really important to just keep your customers informed. make sure you have the tools you need to keep customers informed, right? Whether that's having a knowledge base, a publicly visible knowledge base, whether that's having some automation, little pop-ups on your website saying, hey, we can't offer one-day shipping anymore, but what we can do is X, Y, and Z. I think as long as you're keeping customers informed, customers are okay with that. And it's, having, as Carly said, having a great customer service team to be able to communicate that and to empathize with customers, I think is really, really important. It's sometimes businesses tend to overcomplicate things, and there really isn't anything that complicated. I think it's mainly about communications.
Fantastic. Chad, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, so look, with the pandemic that happened, a lot of warehouse employees, as I'm sure ShipBob is familiar with, could probably make either more money collecting unemployment or were forced to be socially distant. So being able to quickly create an FAQ on your website, informing customers of what is happening, it's very reactive, but it's one way to be transparent. The second thing is, like, right now, if you are going through a growth spurt, or even if you have some downtime at your company, it's really important to focus on operations. So how can you make your operations more efficient? How could you compete with 2-day shipping? One of the things that you can do is you can be adding multi-warehouse footprint in the United States. It doesn't cost extra money. It's just strategically placing your goods so you could actually hit all of the United States within 2 days, at least 99% of the time, which, by the way, is a shout out to ShipBob. So I think, and you need to have a software, right, to be able to handle that. And I think that's really, really important. The last thing I would point out is that there's this idea of perceived value. So if you can buy diapers, or let's use actually an electric skateboard. I think that's a better example. I actually tried using an electric skateboard, and it really wasn't a good fit for me. I kept to my scooter, which is somewhere in my office here. So perceived value is like, hey, I'm going to buy an electric scooter on Amazon. I get 2-day shipping on Prime. If I actually buy it on the website from Boosted or from the customer that you're referring to, you can actually maybe include an ebook into it, right? An ebook on, like, hey, how not to fall on your back, or here are the 7 mistakes that all noobs make when driving an electric skateboard. So those are the kinds of things that I would be strategically thinking about, is how do I add more value versus taking away value so I could compete with the likes of an Amazon.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Really good. I think it's interesting as well. I think if you're a kind of smaller store that's growing or scaling, words like fulfillment and operations can be quite intimidating. You're growing, you're probably quite concerned that your costs are going to increase very quickly. As a scaling store, how can I lower my fulfillment costs as a growing D2C brand? Chad, perhaps you could start us off.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into the first thing you can do is you can start thinking strategically, looking at everywhere where people are buying from you and planting a warehouse, a 3PL, very close to the customer, so you could lower your fulfillment costs. So that's something that we did at my e-commerce business. We're using Skubana to orchestrate that. And so we have 2 warehouses across the United States. A, it lowers our lead time, which is super important. B, it lowers our lead time to the customer, so we could offer 2-day shipping to the customers. So those are things that we've been doing. We also started making our own, as we're making vacuum bags or vacuum filters, we're actually making poly bags in overseas in China, and with our own branding on it, and they've been lowering the cost of our actual packaging as well. So sort of like a multi-pronged approach, but we're always thinking about how do we actually maximize, how do we optimally make more profit for the company.
Brilliant. And Carly, would you add to that?
Yeah, like you said, I think it's daunting when you're talking about fulfillment and being, a young brand or just starting to grow. But I think, like, having the conversation, fulfillment companies, they're able to negotiate rates that you as an individual e-commerce brand might not be able to. So utilizing a fulfillment center earlier will, 1, save you money, and 2, you can, like Chad said, you can distribute your inventory. So you can look and say, hey, I know majority of my customers are on the West Coast, and having a fulfillment center in the West Coast, and then having a fulfillment center, somewhere super central like Chicago. An example I love to use is a company called My Calm Blanket. So they're weighted blankets, and this was like all the craze last Christmas. Their orders skyrocketed, but their blankets come in 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15, and 25. And so shipping them across the US, they were just getting just destroyed in their postage. It was so expensive. These blankets were heavy. And what they did was they strategically put their inventory on all the coasts, and then had a central hub, like central in the US, like a Chicago fulfillment center or a Dallas fulfillment center. And they were able to, one, get their orders to the end customer a lot faster, and then just save a ton of money on postage.
That's really interesting. Yeah. And David, anything to add?
Yeah, I think in terms of reducing fulfillment cost, I mean, one of the best things you can do is actually to minimize or at least reduce like returns, exchanges, warranty claims. I think a lot of that has to do with customer service issues, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to a customer service issue. I think if you're like, for example, taking fulfillment, like if it's really hard to predict like when your product's going to gain traction, right? Like sometimes it's just, you post something on Instagram and it just suddenly goes crazy and people are buying from you. I think the same approach, you need to take the same approach with customer service too. I think if you're able to scale your customer service operations alongside your fulfillment operations, you can kind of minimize when customers like have a problem with your product because you're fulfilling so quickly and you're kind of something's going wrong, packaging's wrong, maybe you're shipping the wrong product, the wrong size. Any of these issues, I think, can add cost to fulfillment. And if you're actually able to scale customer service along with your fulfillment process, your team and your entire business will actually have a much easier time dealing with those issues. And in dealing with those issues successfully and efficiently and in a cost-effective way, you can actually reduce your fulfillment costs by quite a lot.
It's interesting. I think one of the things we talked about in last week's webinar, which was all about conversion, was how as a scaling business, you have so much more data available to you, and that can also be quite overwhelming. You're not necessarily sure what questions you're trying to answer with your data. So I think that's fantastic because each of you is given quite an actionable thing that you could go away and look at in quite a lot of detail. So returns, you could look at that data and make some good decisions about it, and where your shoppers are geographically. If you really get into that data, you can answer some of these questions. So yeah, I think that's a really nice action for people to take away. Thank you. Next question. So what do you believe is the biggest opportunity that brands are missing when it comes to fulfillment at the moment? Kylie, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I love this question because what gets, opened 100%? Like what gets 100% open rate? It's your box, right? Like you're always going to open your box. It's always going to get open. Some, like people are looking forward to it. So I think a really like an opportunity miss is just making that an experience. Like Chad said, like having custom packaging, having inserts, having like little thank yous. I think stuff like that during now and this pandemic goes a long way. And I just think your box is always going to get opened. So having like some sort of little experience to go along with it goes a long way. And like you said, like people are going to post that on social. It's going to get people talking. I know for me personally, like I love the brand Glossier, and they come in these little like pink bubble pouches, and I use them when I travel. I use them all the time. So I just think creating an experience during unboxing is pretty significant.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love it when you get something you weren't expecting, that little bit extra. It's not just in a brown package, it's all wrapped up. And I particularly love it when people have got a bit of a personal touch inside. Like there's a watch brand I ordered from recently, and they had this lovely little postcard inside with a handwritten message. And it probably wasn't handwritten. I'm a marketer, I should know that. But it was a really lovely experience, and I've talked about it so much since. I think it's a great point.
Yeah.
David, what would you add to that?
I think proactive post-purchase support. Too many P's. So I think, we've all shopped online. I buy plenty of things. My wife obviously buys plenty of things. And I don't think there are that many businesses out there that, they have our email, they have either our email or our phone number at least. And I can probably count on one hand how many times we've gotten proactive post-purchase support. I think it's really I think something really important that's missing from a lot of businesses is being able to just, when someone purchases something, you, as a business, when the item is shipped, when it has been delivered, and when customers reach out to you about something. So you have all that data kind of at your fingertips. It's really important to leverage that data and to make that entire experience better. That's a big piece that's missing right now from a lot of brands, is just following up with your customers after they've received their order. It's sometimes as simple as that. Send them an email saying, hey, it looks like your order has arrived. How is it? Let us know. Do you have any questions about it? Can we send you, a tutorial video? Can we send you a brochure, like a PDF? Just something as simple as that can really close the loop and, allow that customer to kind of evangelize your brand, tell their friends and families about it. It doesn't cost much, right? And it has a big effect.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Chad, any thoughts on that?
I'm thinking to myself, what are brands in my life that I evangelize or that I'm a champion of that have maybe just a high NPS score? So someone that comes to mind would be Bombas socks. They offer a unlimited warranty on their socks. One of the things I've seen other brands sort of mimicking there would be having an exclusive club for warranties. So you're joining this VIP club, you're putting in your information, and that allows you to actually then send that customer other things around their product that they purchased from you, which increases the lifetime value of that specific customer. Chubbies is a great example. Like on your first time purchase, you get a box. It's a great unboxing experience, but as a second time or third time or fourth time buyer, they actually throw in extra goodies into the box that is just like, whoa, I didn't order this. This is a surprise. And it creates one of those aha moments that I think everyone can relate to, where you're like, wow, this is a brand I can really get behind. The last one that comes to mind for me would be Love Every. I'm a new father. By the way, it's been an amazing experience. He's just about to turn 1, coming up in August 11th. And we subscribe to Love Every, which are these boxes that are built around how to teach your child different new movements, different new skill sets. And they do a phenomenal job at not just giving you a box of what you need to play with your child, but with a whole book. And they also follow up with emails regarding that as well. And it's just become this great place for me to then go and teach these skills to my son, and I can just shout them from the rooftop all day long. Those are the moments you want to recreate.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because especially some purchases are a lot more personal than others, and some purchases need a lot more kind of guidance and explanation than others to really use them effectively. And I think if something like that, where you're going to be engaging in that product with your child, that's very important. So it has to be a great experience. Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you. So David, you mentioned, let me try this, proactive post-purchase support in your answer. Out of interest, we've talked a little bit about sort of the returns bit, the post-purchase bit. Where else do you see customer service really fitting within the fulfillment strategy?
Basically everywhere. So I think it's probably the most important though, pre-purchase, because it also depends on the product that you're selling as well. So for example, like Cabrita, they sell, goat milk formula, basically like dairy products for newborns and children, right? And their products, I mean, they have a lot of, their fulfillment process isn't quite as complex as like an electric skateboard or something fully customized. But their customers ask a lot of questions beforehand, like, because it's food related, they ask questions about, hey, how long does it take to ship, or how long is the shelf life? If I live in Canada, do I have to pay, I don't know, some sort of tax because it's a food import? They have all these questions that they've kind of collected over time, and they're using Re-Amaze to essentially kind of warehouse all that knowledge. And what they're doing is essentially mapping customer intents with those FAQ articles. So customer intents are like, when customers ask a question, what topic is it related to? So we have natural language processing and machine learning on our side that can detect a specific customer intent and then send that customer down a specific path. And kind of all that automation really helps with their fulfillment process, because they now know when a specific customer is requesting a certain type of product, but also where to ship that from, how to best handle the logistics for that product. They also sell a lot of wholesale. So it's vital to them not only to provide adequate information, but also collect enough information for themselves in order to run fulfillment more successfully and more efficiently. So I think the FAQ, as Chad mentioned earlier, is also really, really important, having that knowledge base. But having that knowledge base be automated intelligently is even kind of more crucial. And having that alongside all of your, logistics operations and all that is really, really important.
I think FAQs are one of those undervalued things. They're not too difficult to put together. They're quite quick to make, and yet not enough people are actually doing it. I mean, if you could take that friction away and have someone answer their questions without having to reach out, even better, but not enough of us actually get around to doing them.
And if you look at like a lot of brands, oh, sorry to cut you off.
Okay.
A lot of brands out there, almost every single, e-commerce brand, like website you go to, they do have an FAQ. The FAQ, there's FAQ there, and there's a better FAQ, right? A lot of times it's just text on a wall, and people don't like to read. They don't have time. They don't have, they don't have the patience to go around searching for things that they're looking for. So sometimes having an FAQ automation is really important. Bringing that FAQ into your live chat system, giving your chatbots the ability to learn from your FAQ. Those are things that brands need to do more.
It's interesting, and I guess make sure it's really obvious where it is on your site as well. If it's too buried away, people may not find it. Great, thank you. So Carly, to get a little bit more technical, as we said, scaling comes with new challenges, and it comes with processes you might not have worked with before. Can you tell us a bit more about inventory distribution? How and why, when is it important to start distributing your inventory?
Yeah, so really like how you do it it's quite simple. I mean, you're gonna wanna look at where majority of your orders are coming from, right? So you wanna look at zip codes, and then you'll wanna have a fulfillment center that has, in my opinion, that has multiple warehouses throughout the United States. ShipBob has 8, and then we have 2 internationally. And then you're gonna wanna send your inventory, obviously, closest to where your customers are. And if you're starting off business, I always recommend a very centralized fulfillment center like a Chicago, Dallas, just strategically they're right in the center of the US. And then why you want to do it is, one, your customers are going to be a lot happier, if something's coming to you in 2 days versus, standard shipping, 6 days. And then it's also going to save you a ton of money. Like shipping so in fulfillment, we use zones, and zones are basically like shipping something from Chicago to San Francisco. It's going to be more expensive because it's, they're farther away, and 2, it's going to take more time. However, if you have a fulfillment center in, let's say like LA, which is Los Angeles, a huge hub, shipping to San Francisco, it's probably going to take 2 days. It's going to get there really quickly. And I think ShipBob, we have an analytics tool in our dashboard. It's free. It's 100% free to use. And what it is you can input your orders, and it has all of our fulfillment centers, and you can actually toggle on fulfillment center. So if you want to see what it's like to add on a fulfillment center in Florida or in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, you're able to see. And then you're able to see, wow, my cost is going to go down by this much, and my average transit time is only going to be 2 days.
Fantastic. So that's really helpful. Thank you. And Chad, a slightly technical one for you as well. Why is it that having a platform agnostic order and inventory management system is important? And also, at what size or stage does this become important for a business?
Yeah, so I think, it becomes important as complexities increase. So digitally native brands start off with a couple of SKUs, maybe one channel, such as Shopify or some other shopping platform. And as they reach economies of scale, they start to try to scale the business, but they're only using, they don't have the tools to make it happen. So as you start adding multiple SKUs, multiple fulfillment centers, you start trying to understand your profitability becomes that much harder because you're using all these point solutions. Then comes along a company typically you see like maybe a 3PL that says, oh, we have a tech stack on top of it. You don't need to have an operation software. And you never really, as a company, you want to be completely flexible. So you want to have a 3PL. You may want to one day move 3PLs to a different 3PL. And the same thing for Skubana, right? You may want to move to a different platform, and hopefully that doesn't happen where we can grow with you. But you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. So I highly recommend picking a operations platform that's agnostic, that's not tied to anything, where it gives you functionality where you could leave one 3PL and then plug in ShipBob, for example, which is in our app store. So being able to do stuff like that is important. I'm hoping that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a really interesting point, you know, that flexibility, things might change, you might evolve as a business and need a different solution. And I think that's one of the fantastic things about the kind of app store ecosystem that we're operating in is, you know, we've all got apps that you can install, you can try out, you can experiment with, and you can have an entirely sort of unique tech stack without having to go away and build it by yourself, which is such a great development in terms of e-commerce. And I think exactly as you say, having the flexibility to change it and adapt it is also really important.
But I do think that there's something that's agonizing that happens as you scale and you're using all these point apps, like 30 apps on Shopify. It becomes a point of actual a problematic area, I think, as companies scale, because they're duct taping all these apps together. They were never meant to talk to each other, and then you start having failure points. So I believe we're moving into this phase of e-commerce where you're bundling, like Shopify is bundling apps together, right? And they're building their own apps, right? You have someone like Amaze who's bundling together many different features that are built into the platform. And then the same thing for Skubana is we're really focusing on, okay, let's focus on our best-in-class operation stack and try to bundle as much of that in one place as we possibly can, because you'll have a lot more rich data to make decisions around.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got also, you know, tools like scripts and flow and things that are connecting tools up as well now, which is a great development as well. Fantastic. Thank you. So next question, obviously one that's quite dear to my heart, because customer loyalty, VIP treatment, all of those things is something that we'll deal with every day. So do you have any favorite examples of e-commerce businesses that you feel are going above and beyond to make their loyal customers feel like VIPs, or treating them slightly differently during the fulfillment part of the journey? David, perhaps we can start with you for that one.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this company earlier. I think Cauliflower does a really good job at this. So Cauliflower, they sell cauliflower-based pizza. Really delicious. You can buy them at Costco, actually. But one thing that they do for their VIP customers, and obviously they're kind of using Re-Amaze to do this, but essentially what they're doing is when customers come to their website, whether or not they're logged in, Re-Amaze knows, well, Shopify tells Re-Amaze, and Re-Amaze tells the merchant that, hey, this customer is a repeating customer. They've been to your website before. They're currently logged in. They've previously spent, $500 with you, and they've placed at least 3 orders. So we have all that information flowing from Shopify, or from BigCommerce for that matter, flowing into Re-Amaze, and we're essentially allowing the merchant to build these automated campaigns that target these cohorts of customers. So what Cauliflower is essentially able to do is use our live chat system, bring in segmentation from segmentation built off of data coming from Shopify or BigCommerce, and messaging their currently online customers automatically. So they're running like VIP discounts, maybe like 20% off your next purchase, or use this code because you're a VIP, and they're not really afraid of that code being kind of leaked out into the public because they're using such advanced targeting in their live chat system. So that's one of the major things that's been great for Cauliflower and kind of growing that channel. I think alongside automated messaging that can do cohort targeting is the ability to run automation when an inbound message has been received. So a lot of customers, they're repeat customers, they're VIP customers. Well, you kind of want to treat them differently when it comes to support. If you're a brand new customer, you get sent down a specific path. You kind of get, the support that everyone gets. But when you're a VIP customer, when you've spent thousands of dollars with a particular brand, you want to make sure that they get the attention that they need, because they're already evangelists of your brand. So you want to make sure that their experience stays positive. And a lot of that comes down to having the data to be able to automate that. So what Cauliflower does in the back end with Re-Amaze is, again, they take that same data and say, if customer message comes in from live chat, and if this customer has, this Shopify variable, then assign it to, VIP support. Something as simple as that, being able to route customers through efficiently, getting them the help that they need from the right agents, will do wonders in terms of making VIP customers feel really, really special.
Yeah, fantastic. I absolutely love that there's a brand called Cauliflower. I think that's a fantastic name.
Have you tried it before?
I have not, but I will be.
So good.
Fantastic. Thank you. Chad, anything to add to that? Oh, I think you might be on mute.
Sorry, rookie mistake. I was just actually saying, I like that idea from David with the VIP customer support. I didn't think of that, but I think that's a value add. It comes down to that like perceived value, right? Even if it's just like one escalation point internally, I think it's awesome. For me, I would kind of go back to like what I shared earlier, which is essentially rewarding customers. Like as we look at the lifetime value of those customers and start throwing in unintended things into those boxes, which I think will give you a high ROI and a much higher NPS score. Bombas is one of those companies. Literally, I can rip a sock, contact the CS team. I wore the sock for a year and a half or 2 years. Gross, right? They will take it back. Or they'll be like, hey, go and here's a sock and go donate this sock. And so I think it's like that kind of support they gave me, where I'm like, wow, I am their customer for life, and I'm going to tell all my friends and family. In fact, for Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, I'll get them some Bombas socks, fresh Bombas socks.
Fresh. Yeah, and you'd feel like you're important to them. They're going out of their way to keep a relationship with you. So of course you'd stay shopping with them and stay loyal to them. Fantastic. Carly, any other examples to add?
Yeah, so similar to what David was saying, there's a company that I love. It's called Verb Energy. They're basically like little energy bars. It's equivalent to having a coffee. And I usually will eat one every morning. They get me through the day. 4 o'clock, I'll eat one. And they're just really good. And I thought what they were doing was super cool. So they were looking at like what David was saying. We call them like their power sellers, sellers that buy from them a ton. And they were actually asking them like, hey, what flavors would you guys like to see in the future? And then they were having those flavors, and then they were rewarding those customers and sending them as like samples, and then following up with them and like asking them, how were the flavors? Did you like them? So I thought that was just super cool to like kind of test out new flavors and also like reward your customers and really hear like what they want. I thought that was just super cool. And as, a fan of theirs, like I really like doing that.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that we talk about a lot at Loyalty Line is experience-based rewards, experience-based engagement, and that can be really simple things like early access to sales, but it can also be things like product beta tests and things. If you give your VIP customers the opportunity to either inform the roadmap of your products or test your products first or something, then you're giving them something very special and they feel very connected to your brand. I think that's fantastic.
I felt like exclusive. I felt very cool that they asked me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it goes a long way, I think.
Sometimes it's really something very, very simple too. Like we have another customer called Race Face. They sell mountain biking gear, knee pads, elbow pads, like racing gear essentially. I recently took a fall, actually electric skateboarding, but I wanted to buy some knee pads. So I actually went to one of our merchants, right? One of our clients. I'm like, hey, Brad, I want to buy some knee pads from you guys. What do you recommend? And he recommended me something. I purchased it, and I said, hey, Brad, look, I bought them. Thanks for the discount code. So he gave me a discount code as well. But what he did do and didn't tell me was he upgraded me to 1-day shipping. Right? He had their fulfillment team upgrade me to 1-day shipping. I didn't pay for extra for 1-day shipping. I just picked normal shipping. But something as simple as that, when you're dealing with a VIP customer, just doing something as simple as that can really make them feel special.
Yeah, surprise and delight goes a very long way, I think. Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, we're coming to the end of our session. We've got one great question, which I think Chad's already seen on our chat, but will Reamaze and Skubana natively integrate in the near future? I think it'll be discussed after this call, so stay tuned for that. And then I have one last question for you, which is, we've talked a lot about the amazing fulfillment experiences that brands are delivering. But one thing I'd really like to know is have you had any experiences that have literally made you shudder with how poor they were? Any fulfillment experiences recently where you've either been waiting so long for a product with no communication, or, well, I won't take the words out of your mouth, but is there anything that you've seen recently that, or experienced recently, that you think is a serious lesson for us all to learn from? Kylie, let's start with you.
Yeah, I actually ordered something. I won't say from where, but I ordered something and it took a really long time. And first, I'm like, coming from the fulfillment industry, I know that the carriers are overwhelmed. It's going to take, longer than normal to get to me, and that's okay. And I was very aware of that, but I never received the product, and I was just constantly asking their customer service team, like, what's going on? What's going on? And they were just like, your order's on your way. And I can tell it was like a chatbot I was talking to. And I was like, what the heck? I really want this. Like, what is going on? And finally, I had a customer service representative actually call me, and they were just like, yeah, we actually sold out of the product. We're just going to refund you. And I was like, so I waited this long,
Oh,
still
no.
didn't get the product. So that was definitely a bummer.
Yeah, that's a great example. David, anything spring to mind for you?
I think we're partly to blame for Carly's experience there. I mean, we have a lot of chatbots, right? We have a lot of chatbots that, I don't have a fulfillment story, but I have a customer service story. So like, we have a lot of automation tools, like automated workflows. We have, FAQ chatbots. We have, order chatbots people can just use to check their order status. We have custom chatbots throughout our platform. And a lot of merchants come to us just for those things. And it surprises me, or kind of amazes me to this day, how a lot of large brands with very, very well established brands, and I won't name any names here because it's not in the positive, but there are a lot of brands out there that everyone knows of that has zero experience dealing with automation. And they're running support still out of Gmail. And I think if I'm to give one recommendation, is that if you're serious about your business, if you're serious about your e-commerce brand, please do not have a lapse in judgment about, how important customer communications is. You don't need a help desk. You don't need like an advanced FAQ. You don't need chatbots, but you need to have a process in place to communicate with customers. If that tool is Gmail and you can make Gmail work to your advantage, having such a large business, then by all means use Gmail. But I think a lot of businesses have kind of a lapse in judgment in terms of how important that is in growing your business. I think you can keep up with demand, but you're not going to grow your business with poor support, kind of like what Carly experienced. It's super, super vital to have a process in place and to have the right tools in place in order for you and your team to work together, to work collaboratively, to be transparent with customers, to keep people updated and informed throughout the entire journey. I think a lot of businesses, small businesses, think of like, oh, hey, I made a sale today, yeah, woohoo! But they don't think about, everything that needs to happen before that purchase and everything else that needs to happen after the purchase. And a lot of it comes down to customer service, right? I mean, a lot of it does. There's some data out there, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's like 51% of like customers don't buy again because of delayed shipping, right? Delayed order, receiving their orders in a delayed fashion. Like 38% or something like that. Don't quote me on this, but 38% of people sometimes don't buy from a brand because they don't have, shipping policies publicly listed on their website. These are super simple things that you can take care of like in 2 hours. And a lot of businesses just kind of forget that. So that's kind of the story I wanted to tell.
Fantastic. And again, a really nice action that someone can take away and get going with straight away. And Chad, last but not least, how about you? Any experiences that have made you really question e-commerce generally?
Well, I'd rather turn my attention on the positive things. I guess the negative thing would be like, hey, I bought some stuff on AliExpress and I shouldn't have, and then that was a mistake. But on a positive note, what I like to do is I typically buy everything on the internet. As an e-commerce operator, I buy every single purchase in my household on the internet, from olive oil to balsamic vinegar to everything else in between, and I learn from the people that are absolutely doing great. And because they have higher budgets, they're spending a lot more time doing A/B testing, and I try to incorporate those learnings back into what I do, and certainly bring them onto webinars like this.
Perfect. Well, I'm sure our audience and listeners very much appreciate that. Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, that is all that we have time for. But as I mentioned, if you have any other further questions, then please feel free to reach out with them. If you haven't already checked out the fulfillment ebook from the Look Forward campaign yet, then you can do so now, and you can revisit the tactics we've discussed today. You can also rewind and get the acquisition and conversion ebooks and webinars online as well. Or you can get ahead of next week and start reading up on our final topic, which is scaling the post-purchase experience. That ebook is available to download online now. So all that remains is for me to say a big thank you to our speakers. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts. Could you guys let us know where you can find you online? Carly, perhaps you could start.
Yeah, you can just find us at shipbob.com, shipbob.com.
Fantastic. And Chad?
My personal email is chad@skubana.com. So if you have questions, comments, things you want to talk about offline, feel free to reach me at chad@skubana.com.
Fantastic. Thank you. And David?
Yeah, you can find us on www.reamaze.com, reamaze.com, and my email is just david@reamaze.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for your time, and thank you everybody who joined us today as well. And we'll see you online again next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.